What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, joined by AC. We are here for the NFL picks against the spread for week number 5, the Gridiron Gamble. Hope you guys join us here live. Make sure you're in the comments section wondering about bets that you should make this week. That's why we're here. We're going to give you 4 of our biggest bets this week and go through why you should bet on each team. As well as if you have any questions regarding your fantasy team, your real team, whatever it may be, put them in the comment section. We'll get to those questions as soon as we can. AC, how's it going, bro? How'd you do last week? And what are you looking forward to this week?
It was different. Well, for a Gridiron Gamble picks, I was 3-1, and then the 5th one I threw in was Detroit, which won 2. So technically, for the Gridiron Gamble, it was good, but I got too cocky with the Eagles bet, and I did alternate spread for more odds. So because they were underdogs by 2.5, which was bizarre. So I made it so that they were favorites by 2.5 for more odds. Obviously, we know the game
that sucks. You should have done. Yeah. You should have done like 1 or something.
Well, no, but like 2.5, I was like, okay, field goal. And plus, at the end, they were driving and elected to just run out the clock. And there was a couple times Blunt had the ball and probably could have ran in, like at the very tail of the game, trying to run out the clock. So that wasn't that great, but got it back on Monday night. And then that was the big – we haven't talked about – because we didn't pick that in the Gridiron Gamble, but the crazy Monday night game. Was it Monday night or Sunday?
Oh, jeez. I picked it. Yeah. No, that was the game that I said, like, was my 5th option, right?
Oh, okay.
So I said, yeah. So then I kept talking myself into it. I'm like, yeah, the Redskins are going to be all over these Chiefs and stuff. Yeah. And they were. And they should have won. Josh Doxson drops the ball, and then freaking
Cousins
worse.
No, and then Cousin tried to keep it alive, right? Like, because he could have just fell on it, but then
I don't blame Cousins on that play because like he's just like, okay, I'm making a financial decision. I'm not going to get killed on this play because we're going to lose anyways. So he kind of like moved out of the way or whatever. So Justin Houston picks it up and runs it in the end zone. I've already ranted about this on the Monday night recap. That was brutal. That sucked because I would have won $200 on that one game. But instead, I lost money. And that was like the worst bet I've had probably ever, I think. Probably the worst finish to a bet. Because my dad said that he's done it a couple of times where he's bet on a game and that's happened.
Well, yeah, it's
something like that. It happens very rarely. Probably
we're young. It's called a bad beat, right? It's a missed PAT to cover. It's that was kind of the extreme version of a bad beat, but it happens somewhat, or garbage time touchdowns and whatnot.
That's different. That's like backdoor.
But this happened was absolutely insane.
Yeah, that was the worst. But anyways, we're gonna get you some 4 picks in particular that we think will make you some money this week, and we're gonna start off with 2 bets that we feel are going to get you the most money this week. Are going to be the surefire bets this week because we agree on both of them. So, AC, you give one of them, then I'll give the other. Explain why you're taking Buffalo plus 3 points against Cincinnati.
Yeah, Buffalo 3.5. I really like how Buffalo's defense has been playing. When I first look at this, I'm like, yeah, Cincinnati has been playing better, but they have been beating the bottom of the barrel teams of the league and making their offense look good. I think when push comes to shove, this defense is going to step up and rattle Dalton. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball like they can. And then offensively, I just like that offensive line of the Bills. They're big, they're nasty, and LaShawn's having a decent year this year. And then Tyrod's, we've seen he's not turning over the ball, and because he's not a very good quarterback. He's a decent starting quarterback, I guess. I
think he's better than what he gets recognition for.
No, exactly. And I think he's better than he gets recognition for. But what he gets recognition for is so low, even just being like, oh, I think he's a bit better than that, still isn't that great. Just because a lot of people just think he's trash. But I think the way he's getting that offense together, not throwing interceptions. And then, you have LaShawn McCoy too. And if you look at McCoy with Tyrod, McCoy gets like almost 7 catches a game too, just out of the backfield. So McCoy's the whole offense there. And I just like them 3.5. I do think this seems like a year where Buffalo potentially could, let's just say second place, because I always give first place.
Well, they've been in second a couple times,
but not made the playoffs.
Yeah, maybe they can make the playoffs this
year.
We'll see.
Especially because a lot of people maybe thought Miami. I think Miami's done. Obviously, the Jets have had a nice little run, but I still think Buffalo, all said and done, when it gets into the winter time too, they're going to be able to win those games.
Yeah, good points. I think just to add on to that, because I also took Buffalo, they're +3 here. You would think that they would be -3 in a game where they're 3-1. Cincinnati is -3, despite being 1-3. And who did the Bengals beat, AC? They beat the Browns, who I feel is the worst team in the NFL. Yes, they blew them out, but the Bills have beaten good competition. It's not like they've just walked over some bad teams like the Browns. They've beaten Atlanta in Atlanta, and they've beaten Denver at home and kind of scoring some points in that game too, which is pretty impressive. So they beat those two teams. Plus, they only lost to, what was it, Carolina, right?
Exactly. And that was like the first game of the season. It was like 9-3, I think. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So, they've had a really good defense this year. I think they're in the top 5 for certain. I don't know the exact. I think it's second, but I'm not exactly sure. They played really well with McDermott and that scheme. I think the biggest thing with the Bengals, the reason why they've been able to move the ball the last couple of weeks, first off, you have to give them credit for switching their coordinator, which is good. But their offensive line was their biggest issue in the first couple of weeks. I'm not exactly sold that that's fixed. I think that the Bengals will get a little bit more pressure on them in this game. I think the Bills are going to be able to pass rush a little bit better than the Browns did and then the Packers did. And they only lost to 3 by the Packers. But looking at the Bills, like you said, LaShawn McCoy is their offense. I think in this game, the Bengals defense is good. Don't get me wrong. They've played some good football so far. But where you look at their stats specifically, they're good on pass defense, but run defense is kind of still lacking. I think it's around the 20 range. So if LaShawn McCoy can get going, Tyrod Taylor can work those play action boots, and Charles Clay has been getting over the top like he did against Atlanta, I think they're going to be able to move the ball with some success. And I think the Bills will be able to shut down the run game, which has been non-existent for the Bengals. Their corners are playing really well, and I don't think they'll have too much trouble covering A.J. Green, which the Packers and the Browns both did. And I just look at the Bills. They're a much better team. They're playing better football. They're better coached. And I just, like you said, I think seems like an easy bet here. We'll see. The only negative to this game is that I feel like usually, not this season's Bills, because this is a different season entirely, but usually when the Bills are playing well, they drop a game that you expect them to win. So that has me a little bit skeptical, but looking at just the teams, the matchup entirely, you have to go with the Bills here. And I think we're putting some decent money on this one.
Yeah, and the thing is, too, like you said, with Cincinnati's run defense, it's not that great because we haven't really seen their run defense the last 2 games, because with a huge lead, the team playing from behind, like Green Bay wasn't running the ball when they were down to Cincinnati. You know what I mean? And then Cleveland obviously got down early. They're not going to be running the ball. They're going to be throwing the ball. So that's the one thing I look at it that I'm somewhat scared of is Buffalo needs to stay in the game or get off to a lead. Because I think Cincinnati has a hard time coming back. But what we've seen in Cincinnati's wins is they hit the ground running and get a lead early, and it's tough for teams to come back. Like in the entire NFL, it is. But they've been winning games that way, getting the lead early and not winning close. So I think if it's a close game too, it definitely favors Buffalo.
And you know why? Because their strength is when they're ahead. Because they can pass rush, they can play pass defense, and then they can protect their offensive line. So that's 2 ways of them winning. But I think Buffalo is a team that's going to keep it close against almost everybody because of their defense and because of the style of play that they play on offense, where they kind of control the clock and stuff. So we'll see what happens. But we both have Buffalo plus 3 points. The other game that we are both high on is Green Bay plus 3 against Dallas. Now, I'll start off with the only negative I see in this game. The only negative I see in this game is if Ezekiel Elliott can go off. That's the only negative. That's the only way that Dallas wins this game, in my opinion, is if they can control the clock with Zeke, because their defense is really, really bad. The Rams torched it, and what was their other loss? The Broncos torched it as well. So, in really the only two good offenses that they've really played, because they played the Giants and they played the Cardinals, which both have inept quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers torches this secondary. Like, this is going to be, as Skip Bayless said, Frisbee with your dog, right? So this is going to be, Devontae Adams is supposed to play now, so he's cleared. Randall Cobb seems like he's going to play. Jordy Nelson is playing. They have all their weapons except for Ty Montgomery, and I don't really think they're going to need to run the ball very much, because if the Cowboys can do something defensively, it's stopping the run. So they're just going to be like they usually do late in the season, where they're like, okay, A-Rod, you're throwing this ball 50 times, and he's going to be able to do that. I think that their tackles being back this week is huge, because they've been practicing. They haven't had those guys the last couple of weeks. They'll be able to kind of contain DeMarcus Lawrence, who's having a good season. But he, against a good tackle last week, and Andrew Whitworth didn't do much. So that's something to take note of. And I just don't see how they can match up in the secondary. I think it's going to be a field day for A-Rod. I think they're going to be scoring a lot of points. And what that does for the Cowboys is it forces them out of their comfort zone. If they're not able to run the ball with quite as much success as they like, I think that that's going to force them into Dak territory, which I just don't trust Dak being able to outdo Aaron Rodgers. I think Dak's a good quarterback. I don't think he's a great quarterback, and I don't think he's at that point in his career where he can win a game by himself with his receivers. And we've talked about how Dez Bryant's been a disappointment this year. He might make a couple plays against the secondary, because the Packers secondary is not great. But the rest of their receivers, I mean, they're just not an explosive offense. They just don't get a lot of down the field plays unless it's a Zeke run, right? So I just don't see how the Cowboys are going to be able to keep up on the scoreboard with the Packers. And defensively, Mike Daniels should be back, so that's going to be massive, because he's their best player on defense.
Yeah, no, I just look at this and I think Aaron Rodgers can put up 30 points on this defense. But like you said, if Dallas keeps the ball a lot, time of possession slow, but that means if they're gonna do those long possessions, that means they're gonna have to come up on third down, which they haven't been great at this season, which they were unbelievable last year on third down. Short passes, finding.
You know what it was, though? It was because it was 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2.
No, exactly. But in a long drive, like, even, when it comes to Green Bay's defense, I do think they've improved. They're still probably bottom 10, maybe bottom 10, I'd still say. But they have improved because they were so bad last year. It seems like they're flying around. They have a bit more energy.
They're creative.
Yeah, I mean, Matthews is having, and then those young corners they did have, last year seemed to be a bit better. Like, Bryce seems to be playing a bit better than he was last year. King, their first round or second round pick, I guess their first pick, but in the second round from Washington, the corner, he's been a little iffy. He's looked really good at times, and then sometimes he's been lost in man coverage. I just think that this is a game Green Bay continues, and I've been high on Green Bay. I think they're close to Atlanta for the best team, but even that game we saw with Atlanta, it made it shady. The NFC's so up in the air, but I've just always liked Aaron Rodgers. I think he doesn't have bad games. When Green Bay loses games, it's not really his fault. So I think this is a game where he's just going to be throwing it all over the field. Dallas is I said this at the beginning of the year. Losing Barry Church and Wilcox, I thought was
I picked them to go 7-9. Yeah,
me too. I picked them, I think 7-9, something like that. I think 8-8, and then I had the skin 7-9. But I did have them not making the playoffs. I just thought, like, losing those two guys in the secondary, because being an Eagles fan and watching that Cowboys team play the Eagles, those two safeties were so underrated. They are very good. And you can even see what they're doing. Wilcox is doing pretty well in Jacksonville, right? And then, Church is in Jacksonville. Wilcox is in Pittsburgh.
Tennessee. Both are playing good.
Yeah. Both are playing better this year. So I think it was tough for them. And I thought Claiborne had his best year last year, and then they don't re-sign him.
And Claiborne's playing really good right now.
He is. Yeah, and because he was coming off his best year, that they've been kind of waiting for him to play like that. And then I just thought the losses, and I thought losing Leary and it's Free, right, that left?
That's huge. A lot of people don't even Dylan is kind of not really brought this up
Leary,
yet. I've been the only one to bring this up.
Yeah.
I've been the only one to bring this up. Jonathan Cooper is not good.
No.
He's not good. He's the biggest reason why this run game isn't the same, because he was supposed to play on the Patriots last year. Remember the Chandler Jones deal?
Yeah.
He was supposed to play on their team. He got cut. He didn't even make the team. Now he's starting for what's supposed to be the best offensive line in the league. But I think with Mike Daniels in there, if they have him isolated like on Jonathan Cooper, that's going to be trouble, like for both run game and pass game.
Yeah, no, and at the end of the day, I just can't believe, even looking at the spread, same with the Buffalo, we might be missing something because it's hard to believe that Green Bay is not the favorite and Buffalo's not the favorite. I know they're playing on the road, but still. I guess the one thing I would say is obviously Green Bay is stellar at home and somewhat iffy
Green Bay,
on the road.
I'm not the biggest fan of Green Bay. You guys know that, and AC certainly knows that. But I just think this matchup in particular, Dallas is Green Bay, except they're worse.
Yeah, true. Yeah, they're very similar.
They're very similar. So, yeah, those are the two games that we both agree on. Let's go with your third game. Which game do you have next?
Okay, well, it's a pick 'em, and it's tough to keep on betting against KC, or it's to bet against KC when I've been winning bets, betting for them, and they've been covering. It's just a pick 'em against Houston. I know Houston looks very good. That defense looks good. Now with Watson, he looks like the real deal, and they could be on the come up. I think it's going to be a great game, but I still could see KC eking out a very close win, which would be all I need. I just like how the Chiefs have been responding. When teams score a touchdown, their defense hasn't been great, but they have sustained long drives, great play calling, third down conversions. Like, they seem to do it all, and Alex Smith has yet to throw an interception this year. And obviously, they don't turn over the ball that much because Kareem Hunt had that first fumble, hasn't really fumbled since. You kind of had the bonehead play by Tyreek that one time. But that's all like little things. But I think when it comes down to this, I think KC is going to be able to move the ball, mix run and pass. And I do think that defense is going to do enough against Houston to stop them.
I picked Houston in this game. Call me a Chiefs hater, whatever you want, but they're at home. They're typically really good at home. And when I look at this game, I think this is going to be the first game where Kareem Hunt doesn't go off, because I think there's too many athletic beasts in the front of Houston. That's just not going to allow that to happen. Watt, Merciless, Clowney, everyone knows the names. I think I've looked at Kansas City's offensive line, and they've not been playing well, and that doesn't fare well with these guys in the front. And they're going to have to rely, I think, even more on Alex Smith this week to make some plays with the receivers on the outside. Because if Houston's weak anywhere, we saw it specifically against the Patriots, where their corners aren't the greatest, their secondary isn't the greatest. If they can't get a lot of pressure, then they're kind of in trouble. But is Alex Smith going to make the same amount of plays as Tom Brady? I don't really think so, especially on the road. And that Chiefs defense to me hasn't been ultra impressive. It's kind of bend but don't break. I think that Watson can, make some plays. I think this is actually going to be sort of a defensive game. And I think just in the end, the home team is going to take it. I think Kansas City has been in too many close games. They're going to falter at one point, and something's going to happen. Maybe a turnover happens, an unlucky play, and they just fall in one of these games, because they were close against the Redskins, even close against the Chargers, close against the Eagles. So they're close in like every game this season, basically. So I don't know. It's just I just think Houston at home, Watson riding high, lots of confidence, that defensive line. I just like the Texans here.
Yeah, and the only thing that money night is
AC, stop. Talk.
Hello?
Your mic is kind of.
Hello?
Yeah, better.
The one thing I will say, though, about the KC game against Redskins, that was a Kirk Cousins show. And I don't any other quarterback around Kirk Cousins level and lower, like they don't even come close to winning that game. That was all Kirk Cousins, team him on the back. And can Watson do that? maybe. But if he doesn't have it, he needs to have a performance in a way like Cousins did, just to even be close. Like
I will
Wentz
say
did
this,
that
AC. One of the things that Cousins did have on Kansas City was his mobility. And is Watson going to be able to do those same things? I think it kind of falls on Bill O'Brien, which he was a lot better last week against Tennessee in terms of game planning. Can he game plan those sort of plays against Kansas City and allow Watson to do the same things that Kirk Cousins did? Because they did struggle with that at times, especially on third downs with the rollouts and all that stuff and just the scrambling.
Yeah. Well, I think, too, it's like I don't think in a way you don't really game plan for Cousins to be moving around. But if you're the Chiefs, you're definitely game planning for Watson, a mobile quarterback, to be moving around. So we'll see what the adjustments are. I just thought in a pick 'em, I'll just go with the Chiefs. They haven't, I got to go with a team that has pretty much covered every single game, or hasn't lost a game, has won close. That's kind of the reason too. I went with them because there were a lot of other, like we saw this week. There's a lot of tough picks, to go with, and I just felt go with the team that's 4-0, see what happens.
Fair enough. I'm going with a pick 'em myself. I'm going with the New York Jets in a pick 'em against the Cleveland Browns.
Nice.
I think the Cleveland Browns are the worst team in the NFL. They can't play offense. They can't play defense. The New York Jets are actually pretty good. They're 2-2. Nobody wants to give them credit. And one of their losses was to the Bills in week 1, and it was only by like 6 points or something like that.
Yeah.
And week 2 against the Raiders, they were actually in that game for a while until they fumbled. So I think the Jets have been a lot better than a lot of people think. They beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. They beat the Dolphins handily in that game. Against the Browns, even though it's in Cleveland, Cleveland has like one of the worst home fields in the league. The Jets, I just look at their defense. It's really underrated. I really like their young safety tandem that they have. Their defensive line is decent. I think they'll be able to cover whatever receivers the Browns have, speaking of Morris Claiborne, who's been playing really well. And they have some athleticism on that defense. Cleveland, the only worry to me is how much does Myles Garrett transform this team? That's the only worry to me, because I think the Jets, like we talked about the Dallas and the Packers, I think that the Jets are a better version of the Browns. They have an older quarterback that's getting things done. Kaiser isn't getting things done. The Browns haven't been able to run the ball. I don't think they will be in this game. And I think the Jets' run game has been pretty impressive with their new kid and also Powell running like all over the place last week. I don't know. And then the Jets, like, sure, they don't have great receivers. That's their weakness. But the Browns don't have great corners. So I love the Jets in this game. I don't understand why they are not favored in this game, because they are 2-2 and the Browns haven't won a game yet. I understand the whole home field thing, and I understand the whole, if Cleveland's going to win a game, it might be this one. But are we really going to bet on a team that hasn't won and it was only won one game in 2 seasons? Like, I don't know. I like the Jets here. I think they're a far better team. And like I said, they're the same team, but better than the Browns.
Yeah, it looks like we've seen the spreads are weighed heavily with the home teams this week.
Yeah.
I'm not going to touch this game with actual money, but I am in a spread pool that I am taking Cleveland here, but I don't have any money on it. I'm just doing it because it could be a little difference maker when it comes to overall. The only reason I'm picking them is just exactly what you said. If they're going to win a game, you know what I mean? Like, this is, and at the beginning of the season, I remember I was telling you this, is for some reason, the way they played their first 2 games, I was like, this could be a team that can cover spreads for some of them. And like, they moved the ball pretty well, obviously in garbage time, and maybe that wasn't worth it against Pittsburgh. And I was just like, Kaiser showed more of himself in that first game, I thought, and then he kind of just like dipped down. But I guess that was against Pittsburgh, but he didn't play that bad against Pittsburgh, right? So I did think they were going to team that we're going to play hard. They have enough offensive weapons.
Their loss of Corey Coleman has been really big.
Yeah. Well, and that's who Kaiser, even since preseason, that was his go-to guy too. So that does hurt. But I'm all for what the Jets are doing. I did think at the beginning of the year that McCown was gonna make a difference, because when you have a veteran guy that is a gunslinger up forever, played on tons of teams, tons of different offense, just knows how NFL games go down, knows how to get who he needs to get the ball to. I don't mind that pick. I'm just going more as a coin flip type thing, and that's one of the games too, in a pick'em thing where you bet on every game against the spread. I'm thinking more people are taking the Jets, so that's just the one game I kind of want to be different in. And if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, not a big deal.
Yeah, and another guy I just want to give a shout out to, Austin Seferian-Jenkins, had 2 good games in a row. One of the most targeted guys on the team, so we'll see if he can have another good game. Okay, your 4th pick bet of the week, AC, is
Minnesota Monday Night Football in Chicago, -2.5 against Trubisky. I just think if you're Trubisky, I think he's going to be a great quarterback, but you're going against a top 3 defense in the league as a rookie quarterback Monday night in Chicago. If he gets this done, he's going to be a god in that city.
That's why I picked him. But I like it just in picks, like, because I just want to see it, because I've been talking about
it would be great.
I've been talking about Trubisky, all this stuff, and Dylan's like, no, I don't. He's not good, and all this stuff. So but I think you're totally right with that. The Vikings defense is amazing, and they're playing a rookie quarterback in his first ever start. But like, just to counterpoint, and then like you can go ahead and finish it off, is just I think the Bears have been playing really, really well at home. Like, those are by far their 2 best performances. They beat the Steelers, and they should have beat the Falcons. And those 2 games, and those are against 2 good teams. They're getting a way better quarterback. I don't care what anyone says. Mike Glennon is terrible. Mitch Trubisky's a lot better. He fits that offense a lot better. He can move. They like to run the ball and work off of that. And I think Trubisky will really benefit from that. And sure, the Vikings, really good. I'm not sure if Bradford's playing. Is he playing?
No, I think he's questionable. Okay. So he might, but we saw Keenum plays well in that offense. And assuming so, just because that one game he did light it up. So, and
the last thing is, I just don't know how the Vikings offense is going to look without Dalvin Cook. So, like, I'm not overly confident in that. And usually the Bears play well against the Vikings at home. So that's just my thought on that to counterpoint. But go ahead and finish off why you're taking this bet.
No, the big thing was it's Monday night primetime. Normally you play the rookie on the road for his first game. This is kind of, you know what I mean? Over the last couple of years, we've seen rookie quarterbacks normally start, if they're going to start mid-season, it's normally on the road, a little less pressure. This is at home Monday night. If I have to lose a bet because off and prime time and is the biggest story in the NFL, then so be it. I just think that defense is way too good to let Trubisky and even that offense, because Jordan Howard has been great. Same with Tariq Cohen, but I just still think they haven't really played a defense like Minnesota yet. This physical, this big, this fast. I think it's going to come back to bite Chicago here, but we could see something close. And I do like Murray. I think Murray getting more touches could help them out, and we'll see. But I'm definitely taking Minnesota -2.5, just because I didn't really see it, because that was probably my last pick that I wanted to take. And I just looked at Minnesota being a team that a lot of people think are going to make the playoffs. And we always look at games in the season. This is a game you can't really afford to lose if you're Minnesota.
Okay, fair enough. My last pick is the Detroit Lions -2.5 at home against the Panthers. I think Detroit right now is the best team in the NFC. And I think that they're playing great complementary football on defense and offense. They were in a tough, rough game against Minnesota in Minnesota. They walked out the winner. Their defense has played really well. They're forcing turnovers. They're all over quarterbacks. Their offense does it. It does their job. Matt Stafford makes enough plays to win. Their run game's better than people think. And I looked at the Panthers last week. Yes, they beat my Patriots. I'm not hating, but I came away from that game and I said, the Patriots lost this game. The Panthers did not win this game. The Panthers were not the Patriots were not covering anybody in that game. There's literally one play where 8 people are covering McCaffrey and friggin' what's his name? The other running back is wide open for a screen pass, and 20 yards down the field, Ed Dixon is wide open as well. So I just think was that the Patriots defense playing awful, or was that the Panthers? I have to look at the rest of the season so far and see that was the Patriots' awful defense, because the Panthers' offense has been really, really bad. I don't think in Detroit, after beating the Patriots, after playing what could have been a huge game for them, like just mentally, and are they going to be able to get up for this game in Detroit against a good team? It's difficult with all the distractions that Cam has gone through this week. I think that this spread's a little close. I think it could become a defensive game because the Panthers' defense is pretty good. They're fast. But I just don't see with that zone scheme, typically Detroit does better against these sort of teams. I was talking about this with Kev, and Detroit plays better against these teams because they don't have receivers that are great against man coverage because they don't have a lot of studs. Like Golden Tate, sure, but other than that, like who do they really have outside? But when they play a team that plays as much zone as Carolina does, they're able to kind of pick their way down the field because they have these sort of players that are smart and can get to the right area of the field for Matt Stafford to throw that bullet in. So I think that Detroit is going to win this game, and I think they're going to win it by at least, I think they're going to win it by at least more than 2.5. I would say probably a touchdown if I had to bet on it. So I think Detroit is the better team here. I think they're better all around, and they're playing some of their best football that I've seen Detroit play in a long time.
Yeah, I've actually never been. I say I like Green Bay more than Detroit, more because of the Rodgers factor. But I've always actually liked the Lions for the last 3 or 4 years. I've actually liked the Lions since Stafford got drafted because I think Stafford is, I guess you couldn't say underrated because everyone knows he is an elite quarterback with his arm. But I do think he is I think captain.
He's a top 5 quarterback.
And he's a leader of his team. I think, if you look at it now, the Seahawks getting rid of Golden Tate for nothing blows my mind because I think Golden Tate is so underrated, especially in that offense. How many touches he gets in that offense, and Stafford seems to get him the ball. I could see Carolina taking a step back from an emotional win. Detroit has been playing consistent every single game, a complete game. Their defense has slowly been getting better every single year. Even if you look at your corners led by Darius Slay, great player. Their front seven's getting better. Obviously, you've seen their linebackers like Whitehead step up at the inside linebacker. Is Gerard Davis still out?
Gerard Davis is playing. That's huge because he's a guy that can cover McCaffrey.
And that was a really nice pick for them. I remember in the draft, I really liked that. I don't mind that at all. I think Detroit's a team that you always can bet on. And let's be honest, I think Carolina still has some sort of secondary problem that's never truly been fixed. At the beginning of the season,
I think they've gotten better.
They have gotten better and at the beginning of the season, I said this. I remember I did think Mike Adams is like 100 years old, but he's good. He's played very well for them at the safety position the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, a lot better than Roman Harper. So
yeah, exactly. Or Coleman, but Coleman's not bad.
Coleman's playing. He's a starter too.
Yeah, so. No, I know, but the Eagles drafted him, so I remember Coleman when he had to come in when our safeties, and he wasn't that great.
Okay.
Carolina.
Those are our picks against the spread this week, week number 5. Let's get to the chat. I don't think there's a ton in here, but we'll get to it nonetheless.
Do you have a 5th?
I don't. I could look real quickly because I did bet on the Patriots.
And if I had to pick something, for some reason, because of how Seattle played in that second half, and I do like the Rams, I really do. I just still don't think they're ready to take out the champs quite yet, the NFC West champs quite yet. So I do like Seattle, not by a lot, but I just liked how their offense started to click in that second half. And obviously it was the Colts, but still, that offense is what we've seen from the Seahawks the last couple of years. And we only saw it for about 15 minutes, but that 15 minutes sure was exciting. And I do think they might be able to do something like that. Maybe not as explosive, but it's tough to keep on going with this Rams team. They got to have a point in their season where they kind of fall off. Because we've seen these new young teams. It's happened to the Eagles before.
They were 3-1 last year.
True, and we've seen it with like the Eagles were 4-0 with it, and then things start to fall out when the season kind of starts progressing along. So I could see this being one of those games with Seattle. Seattle needs to make a statement.
It's a huge game.
Because if Seattle loses this game, it's back to where we were before the Indy game. Like, what's going on with Seattle? It's because with that Indy game, it made people start thinking again. But now it's the real deal. Now it's a division opponent. It's going to be interesting. But I think Seattle's going to be able to get it done. And they're underdogs, which rarely happens.
Yeah. My fifth game, if I was supposed to bet on it, 5 games, I would go with Pittsburgh minus 7.5. They're at home. Typically, they play a lot better football there. I have confidence in their defense playing a Jacksonville team that's very run-heavy. Pittsburgh, they've gotten some guys back now. Tua is going to be back, who's one of their best guys. And when they're asked to shut down a team that can run, it seems like they do a good job of that, especially at home. And I like the way their defense has been playing. Their offense kind of got their legs back a little bit last week against Baltimore. And I think that they've kind of found what their identity should be and has been the last year or so, with Le'Veon Bell running and catching and being the centerpiece of their offense. Yes, Jacksonville has a pretty decent defense, but the only times that Jacksonville's actually won a game is when their defense is absolutely taken over in a game, forced multiple turnovers, and had a touchdown. So Pittsburgh's going to force Blake Bortles to throw. I just don't see that being successful. And Pittsburgh, I think, just slowly as the game goes on, they're just going to wear the Jacksonville defense out and just put some points up on the board. I think they should win this game by 10 at least. So especially at home where they play well. So that would be my last bet.
And even quickly, like normally I like to bet the Eagles, but 6.5 they've been playing all these teams close. Mm-hmm. That I think 6.5 is too much. I do think they win this game, and they're going to be able to stop the run. But we've seen the Eagles the past couple of years against elite receivers and even just mediocre quarterbacks. If they just pass, it doesn't help the Eagles when you're playing a team that's going to have to pass. They're a bend not break defense. They're getting that secondary is getting better, but the Eagles have played Arizona in the past, and Fitzgerald always goes off, always. So it's going to be interesting to see that. I still think the Eagles should win this game. I just think 6.5 is a little much, and we've seen every time the Eagles are close to 6.5, every single game has been almost 2 to 3 points. All their wins, except for Washington, but that was just a touchdown fumble on the last drive. So they've been getting wins, which is great. As a fan, it's awesome. I just don't think they might not be able to cover in this one. I think it's just too many points.
Yeah, I could see Philly kind of getting, if they're going to cover in this one, I feel like it's going to come from their defense getting like a touchdown or something because Carson Palmer sucks. Yeah. But like Arizona, I think, the Eagles' run offense has been better, but I think Arizona can kind of slow that down.
Yeah. Oh, no, for sure. And that's the thing, too, is this is probably the best defense. Let's see, and obviously at the beginning of the season, obviously it would have been the best defense that we've played. But I just think with Arizona getting better as the season's gone on, it's definitely the toughest defensive test that the Eagles have seen this year.
Yeah, so I think it's a close one. Like I could see it going either way, mostly because of Carson Palmer, but we'll see.
Yeah, true. Well, and that's the thing too. If that pass rush can get going, because it's been really stagnant actually the last 2 weeks. Yeah. Obviously not having Fletcher Cox, but if they can get Graham going, I think Jernigan's going to be back because he was even out. If we can get Carson Palmer running around, the game's over, really, because he's a pocket.
He can't run.
Like, he can't do anything, right? So it should be interesting.
Second City CM Punk says Martavis Bryant came up questionable today. Should I gamble on him or throw in Jermaine Kearse? Gillislee kind of screwed me Thursday. I don't know if Bryant's going to play, because if he came up questionable today, that's not a good sign. So it seems like he's not going to play. Plus, even if he does play, he's going to be playing AJ Bouye, and I don't know if that's a really great matchup for him. So, I mean, Jermaine Kearse isn't the greatest option, but against the Browns, he might have a good game. I don't know. So I would just wait till it's a game time decision. But like I said, he's probably not going to play, because if you're injured on a Friday and don't practice, you're probably not going to play.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Donald Trump, I would bet on Bryant, dude. Jets won't have to throw against the Browns. He says Nick Folk is the GOAT. No questions. Very true. Ultra says Bills should definitely win by 3.5. He says Bills 24, Bengals 10. Second City CM Punk says Nick Folk is getting fired by this week. I thought he was going to get fired on Friday.
Yeah, it takes a while. Like, you got to bring someone in first, no?
I guess. I don't know. Chauncey says, Brother Nero, I knew you'd come. He says, Kevin is not on the show. Wonderful. He says, Dylan's not on the show. Wonderful. Says, Brother Nero, can you do your show by yourself one day? I have done that. What are you talking about? Ultra says, great video. Agree with all your bets. Do you think the Rams will beat the Hawks? I personally picked the Rams, but I was a tough bet, like a tough pick. I'm not going to bet.
Very tough. It's very tough because, on paper right now, and what we've seen from both teams, obviously the Rams should be the favorites. But it's just one of those things. It's the Hawks versus the Rams. And the Rams
beat the Hawks all the time, and that's not even being this good.
No, for sure. But it's one of these times now. I know it's still early in the season, but if Hawks want to make a statement and prove that they're still the top dogs, this is a must-win. Because if they lose this game, there's going to be a lot of talk in Seattle and around here that something's up. Depends how they lose, but they've lost too many games that they needed to win, not needed to win, or probably should have won. That it's getting to the point now where now you're playing the LA Rams. Everyone thinks now that the LA Rams are here to stay. You have a chance to knock them off their pedestal a bit, and then make people believe that you're actually the real deal now.
Sure.
So,
should I start Ajay or Buck Allen? I would go with Ajay for sure. Yeah. Ultra says, if the Rams win the West, the Hawks and Cards should be beyond embarrassed. Lions for the win.
Nice.
And then he says, who you got at the quarter mark for the Super Bowl? I still have the Pats. I still got to have confidence in that. Yeah. I still have the Pats. Because I believe come playoff time, I think that they just know how to win, even if they're not as good as we thought they would be. And in the NFC, I think it's between Atlanta and Detroit for me. But I think, honestly, Atlanta did beat Detroit. It was on the last play of the game. But I really like how Detroit's playing right now. I don't know if I'm confident enough to say that they would be in the Super Bowl. But, yeah, it's between those two teams. And I still got to ride with the Patriots. But I think there's a lot of good teams in the AFC that I could see going. Like Denver could go. Kansas City could go. Pittsburgh could go. So I think it's between those four teams in the AFC. And then Detroit, Atlanta. And then I would probably throw in Green Bay because of Aaron Rodgers. I think I'm missing somebody, but I can't really put my finger on it. But, yeah. Those are my team.
Yeah, I'd still obviously have the Pats. I think the Chiefs, obviously we've seen this before, but I think Andy Reid's proven that he is the second best coach by far in the NFL, present NFL today, right now. I think he doesn't obviously he's had problems with clock management, but I don't think that really matters. If you could, I'm going to say this. It's hard to say this. It's hard to say this to you, Mitch, because you're used to winning. But for a lot of fans of losing teams, if you could take a coach for 10 years and not win a championship, but win 70% of your games, most of those guys would say yes.
Would you rather have a Mike Tomlin who won a Super Bowl but has been inconsistent, or have Andy Reid?
I'm just saying I've been through it. Like
Not saying that Mike Tomlin's a better coach.
No.
I think Andy Reid's
I'm saying I'd rather have Andy Reid, but I'm also an Eagles fan, so I've seen it. We ran him out of town after 2 bad seasons, after taking us to the NFC Championship 4 times and a Super Bowl 1 time in 5 years, multiple division championship. It just 2 bad years. We kicked him out of town, which was sad. But the one thing I'll take away from that is being a fan, like Chiefs fans probably since the Andy Reid era. Yes, they won a championship. That's what you strive for. But it's still fun for 17 weeks watching your team win on most Sundays. Yes, it's heartbreaking in the playoffs, but like I say, I'll go back to those Eagles days where we were 11-5, 12-4 every single year and getting to the NFC championships. I'll go back to that in a heartbeat because every Sunday watching those teams play, it was way more fun than like the Chip Kelly days and now it's getting there because we kind of have a quarterback that people are getting behind and a defense that we're getting behind that we like a defense we had during the McNabb years. But yeah, that's why I just think Andy Reid, regardless of not winning Super Bowl, I think is the second best coach. Just look at his stats. And I think the playoffs record does hurt him, but I think how he's built teams with mediocre quarterbacks too. I'm a McNabb fan, but at the end of the day, he wasn't that consistent. He had a great defense, but the way Andy Reid's able to make these quarterbacks look like they're unbelievable out of nowhere is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think he might be the coach of the year right now. Who do you think he would give him the coach of the year? I know a lot of people are saying like Sean McVay.
Well, it's not like, it's tough because coach of the year is normally like how bad they were last year. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Coach of the year is never really like consistency.
But if the Chiefs get like number 1 seed, would you?
Yeah, he might have a chance. But like, how many times has Belichick won coach of the year? Like once or twice, right?
I think 3.
Yeah,
maybe
but still, like 3.
But he should win every year.
Exactly. Yeah, right? So it's more about like what their team did with a different coach, and then you come in and you kind of change.
And one of those years was Matt Castle year. So
yeah. Okay.
All right. Anyways, guys, thanks for joining us here on the Gridiron Gamble. It's Mitch, AC. Make sure you check out Kev's brand new video. It's the 5 biggest storylines in the NFL right now. I'm going to go watch that real quick. So go over there, watch the video, leave Kev some love, and also leave us some love here on this video. Give it a like, subscribe if you're new and you enjoy NFL content. Also, tomorrow morning, NFL Sunday AM live. And it's going to be different for me because I'm on the West Coast, so I'm going to have to wake up earlier, but it is what it is. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Peace.